Have you ever noticed how your energy drains instantly when someone traps you in a conversation about the weather or what they had for dinner last night? That strange, almost physical sensation of your mind shutting down, your attention drifting away, your soul quietly screaming for escape. This isn't random. This isn't just boredom. This is something most people are terrified to admit. The profound psychological repulsion that intelligent minds experience when forced to engage in empty language. The 20th century philosophical genius, Ludwig Wittgenstein, understood this long before modern psychology had a name for it. The man who revolutionized our understanding of language once wrote that, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." Das. But what happens when language itself becomes a prison of meaningless exchanges, of words that point to nothing, of sounds without substance? What happens when small talk becomes the acceptable substitute for genuine human connection? Today, I want to show you why intelligent people, truly intelligent, find small talk not just unpleasant, but utterly unbearable. What I'm about to tell you will make most people deeply uncomfortable, because it challenges how we've structured our entire social world. This isn't about being antisocial or awkward. This is about the profound disconnect between how intelligent minds process language and how society expects us to communicate. If you're starting to recognize yourself in this description, subscribe to this channel. We dive deep into the psychology behind how brilliant minds really work and why society so often misunderstands them. What you're about to discover will be profoundly uncomfortable, but it will shatter your understanding of why certain conversations leave you feeling empty, drained, or even angry. And more importantly, it will show you why this isn't a flaw to fix, but a signal that your mind operates on an entirely different plane of linguistic understanding. The connection between high intelligence and the hatred of small talk is something Wittgenstein identified through his revolutionary concept of language games. For Wittgenstein, language isn't just about conveying information. It's a form of life, a shared activity with rules, context, and purpose. And when that purpose is missing, when the language game becomes pointless, something in the intelligent mind rebels against participating. Let's begin with what Wittgenstein called the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language. When Wittgenstein spoke about language games, he wasn't talking about playful diversions. He was describing how language functions only within specific contexts that give words their meaning. The weather isn't just nice in an abstract sense. That statement has meaning only within a particular language game, a particular context of human interaction. The first insight that reveals why linguistic perfectionists hate small talk lies in Wittgenstein's understanding of meaningful language. For Wittgenstein, the meaning of a word is its use in the language. When words are used without genuine purpose, when they're deployed merely to fill silence rather than to exchange something of value, they become empty gestures, linguistic zombies walking around without life or purpose. For depth seekers, this emptiness isn't just boring, it's actively painful. It's like being a master chef forced to prepare microwave dinners, or a concert pianist restricted to playing chopsticks over and over. The pain comes not from elitism, but from the profound mismatch between capability and constraint. Your mind is built to dance with ideas, to explore conceptual landscapes, to build cathedrals of thought, and instead, it's being asked to shuffle through the same predictable exchange about how busy traffic was this morning. But here's what gets disturbing. Wittgenstein believed that language should reveal something meaningful about our shared form of life. His famous declaration, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent," wasn't advocating for social awkwardness. He was pointing to the profound truth that language divorced from meaning becomes worse than silence. Small talk isn't just the absence of meaningful conversation, it's an active barrier to it. a substitute that prevents deeper connection. What I'm about to tell you next will make you question every social interaction you've ever had. The second insight reveals why word nerds find small talk not just irritating, but morally troubling. The philosopher noticed something darker. That language is essentially public and shared, belonging to communities rather than individuals. But what happens when that shared language becomes a tool for avoiding rather than creating connection? When small talk serves not to bridge human experience, but to maintain comfortable distance. Those who think deeply recognize, often unconsciously, that small talk functions as a social defense mechanism. It allows people to appear engaged while remaining fundamentally disconnected. It creates the illusion of community while preserving isolation. It simulates intimacy while preventing vulnerability. And for minds that crave authentic connection, this simulation feels not just empty, but actively deceptive. Consider what happens at a typical social gathering. 20 people in a room, all engaging in approved small talk pattern. How are you? I'm fine. How's work? Busy as always. Plans for the weekend? Nothing special. Weather nice? Yes. Finally warming up. None of this is communication in any meaningful sense. It's ritual. It's performance. It's what Wittgenstein might call a degenerate language game, one that has lost its genuine purpose and persists only as empty form. Mental explorers recognize this emptiness instantly. They sense the hollowness of exchanges that serve only to signal social compliance rather than to share anything of value. And in that recognition comes a profound moral discomfort. Am I participating in something fundamentally dishonest? Am I enabling a collective pretense that we're connecting when we're actually avoiding each other? This leads to an uncomfortable truth. Wittgenstein famously noted that nothing is hidden, meaning that the surface of language reveals all we need to know about it. The surface of small talk reveals its emptiness, its purposelessness, its function as social anesthetic rather than connection. And the meaning-hungry mind cannot pretend not to see this reality once it becomes apparent. The third insight comes from Wittgenstein's profound understanding of silence. In the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, Wittgenstein ends with the famous line, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." So, while often misinterpreted as advocating quietude, this statement holds a profound truth about the relationship between language and meaning. For Wittgenstein, silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with all that language cannot adequately express. The truly important things, ethics, aesthetics, the mystical sense of existence, resist capture in ordinary language. In the face of the profound, Wittgenstein suggests, silence may be more honest than speech. Now consider what this means for small talk, which attempts to fill silence with language devoid of significance. For the authenticity seeker, this substitution feels not just pointless, but actively dishonest, replacing meaningful silence with meaningless noise. It's the conversational equivalent of drowning out a symphony with static. Pattern recognizers understand, if only intuitively, that certain silences contain more meaning than certain kinds of speech. The comfortable silence between close friends often communicates more than hours of small talk between strangers. The reflective pause after a profound statement often contains more thought than a rapid change of subject to the weather. This is why conceptual architects often prefer silence to small talk. It's not antisocial. It's a recognition that not all silence needs filling, that some spaces between words are valuable precisely because they remain unfilled. As Wittgenstein might say, there are things that cannot be put into words, things that make themselves manifest in the quiet spaces we allow to exist. The philosopher took this idea to its therapeutic conclusion. Wittgenstein came to see philosophy itself as a kind of treatment for the bewitchment that language casts on our understanding. His later work shows a man trying to free himself and others from language's grip, to return to what he called the rough ground of ordinary language in its proper use, rather than the frictionless ice of abstraction. The fourth insight connects to what Wittgenstein called forms of life, the shared practices and contexts that give language its meaning. Small talk represents a particular and particularly shallow form of life, one that meaning makers often find themselves unable to inhabit comfortably. When Wittgenstein says, "If a lion could speak, we would not understand him," he's pointing to the profound truth that language only makes sense within shared forms of life. We understand each other's words because we share contexts, practices, and ways of being in the world. But what happens when someone's form of life, their way of being in the world, is fundamentally oriented toward depth, meaning, and authentic connection? Such a person finds themselves in the position of the lion, speaking a language that others technically understand, but failing to communicate because the underlying form of life is different. This explains why linguistic truth seekers often feel like aliens in small talk situations. It's not just that they're bored, it's that they're operating from a different form of life, one in which language serves to reveal rather than conceal, to connect rather than distance, to explore rather than avoid. The small talk language game feels foreign, not because they don't understand its rules, but because they cannot find meaning in playing it. And here we arrive at perhaps the most liberating insight of all. The hatred of small talk isn't a social deficiency. It's a reflection of linguistic integrity. It's the natural response of a mind that cannot separate language from meaning, that refuses to treat words as mere social tokens, that demands language serve its highest purpose, the creation of genuine human connection. In fact, recognizing and respecting this linguistic integrity can be deeply liberating. When you understand that your discomfort with small talk stems not from social inadequacy, but from cognitive authenticity, you can approach social interaction differently. You can seek out contexts where language serves meaning rather than mere convention. You can find people who share your form of life, people for whom conversation is exploration rather than performance. Wittgenstein himself was notorious for avoiding academic small talk, often preferring to watch westerns rather than engage in empty intellectual posturing. This wasn't rudeness or eccentricity. It was a recognition that certain uses of language serve no real purpose, create no real connection, advance no real understanding. The man who revolutionized our understanding of language knew when language wasn't worth using. Now, there's something even more fascinating about this connection between intelligence and the hatred of small talk. Something that reveals why deep thinkers often seek out very specific kinds of conversation. Wittgenstein observed that language is essentially a tool, and like any tool, it's designed for specific purposes. When used for its intended purpose, it works beautifully. When misused, it fails. The purpose of language, at its highest level, is to allow minds to touch, to create moments of genuine understanding, connection, and shared meaning. Small talk systematically fails at this purpose. It's like using a microscope as a paperweight. It might technically work, but it misses the entire point of the tool. Thought excavators recognize, if only intuitively, that language has a higher purpose than social lubrication. They sense, often painfully, the gap between what language could achieve and what small talk delivers. This isn't elitism. It's a recognition of untapped potential, a frustration with settling for less when more is possible. This is why the same person who finds weather chat unbearable might spend hours discussing a single idea, exploring its nuances, following its implications. It's why someone who can barely muster interest in office gossip might become animated discussing a book, a concept, a question that matters. It's not the quantity of words that differs. It's their purpose, their direction, their potential to create genuine connection. The philosopher revealed something shocking in his work. Philosophical problems arise when language goes on holiday. This strikes at the heart of small talk. It's language on vacation from meaning, words playing at communication without doing the actual work. And the result isn't just boredom, it's a kind of existential frustration, a sense that we're all participating in a charade when real connection is possible. This brings us to a crucial insight about navigating social life as someone who processes language differently. The key isn't necessarily to avoid all social interaction. It's to seek out language games worth playing. It's to find conversations that serve language's highest purpose, the creation of genuine connection and understanding. This might mean being more selective about social contexts. It might mean steering conversations toward topics with substance. It might mean finding people who share your form of life, people for whom conversation is exploration rather than performance. And yes, sometimes it might mean choosing silence over empty words. Wittgenstein famously remarked that the human body is the best picture of the human soul. In conversation, our discomfort with empty exchanges is our soul's picture, a visible manifestation of our mind's need for meaning, connection, and purpose in language. So the next time you feel that familiar drain, that almost physical repulsion as someone launches into a detailed account of their commute or the weather forecast, remember, this isn't a flaw in your social programming. It's a feature of your cognitive architecture. It's your mind recognizing that language can and should do more, that words should serve meaning, not merely fill silence. As Wittgenstein might say if he were here today, the limits of small talk are not the limits of your world. They're simply the boundaries of a particular language game, one you're not obligated to play. Now we arrive at perhaps the most profound insight of all, one that Wittgenstein, with his deep understanding of language and meaning, would surely appreciate. The hatred of small talk that comes with high intelligence isn't just a personal preference. It's part of a larger pattern, a natural system of cognitive specialization in human society. Consider this. If every human were designed to excel at and enjoy small talk, who would do the deep thinking our world needs? Who would spend hours alone with difficult ideas, developing new concepts, solving complex problems, advancing human knowledge? The variation in linguistic preference across humanity isn't a flaw in the system, it's a feature of the system. Your discomfort with small talk might be the very thing that allows you to make your unique contribution to the world. While others are spending their cognitive energy on social pleasantries, you're conserving yours for deeper thought, more meaningful connection, more purposeful use of language. What if, instead of seeing your dislike of small talk as something to overcome, you recognized it as a signal guiding you toward your natural cognitive role? What if the very thing that sometimes makes you feel different from others is actually pointing you toward the unique contribution only you can make? This perspective doesn't just change how you see yourself, it changes how you move through the world. Instead of apologizing for steering conversations toward depth, you recognize that you're fulfilling a valuable social function. Instead of forcing yourself to master the art of meaningless chatter, you focus on creating spaces where meaningful exchange can happen. Instead of feeling guilty about wanting more from conversation, you recognize that your desire for depth serves a purpose beyond your own comfort. Wittgenstein understood that humans are complex, contradictory creatures. Your seemingly contradictory nature, intelligent yet socially awkward, verbal yet uncomfortable with certain kinds of speech, isn't a flaw. It's part of what makes you fully human. It's your cognitive fingerprint, your unique way of processing and creating meaning in the world. The most surprising revelation in Wittgenstein's later work was his view of philosophy as therapy, a treatment for the confusions that arise when we misuse language. Perhaps our hatred of small talk is itself a form of philosophical therapy, a healthy reaction against language gone wrong, a push toward language used right. So the next time you find yourself trapped in small talk, feeling your energy drain and your mind rebel, remember, this isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that your mind is working exactly as it should. It's processing language deeply, seeking meaning where others might not, refusing to separate words from purpose. And in a world that often prizes social conformity over cognitive integrity, this refusal is precious. As Wittgenstein himself might say if he were here today, the discomfort you feel with empty language is not a limitation. It's a manifestation of your mind's commitment to meaning. It's not a barrier to connection. It's a pathway to more authentic forms of human understanding. It's not a sign of social deficiency. It's an expression of linguistic integrity. Your hatred of small talk isn't something to fix. It's something to understand, to respect, and ultimately to leverage as part of the unique contribution only you can make to our collective conversation. If this perspective resonates with you, if you've recognized yourself in these patterns, then perhaps you've found a community of minds that thinks like yours. We are the ones who seek depth in a world of surfaces, who process language as a tool for genuine connection rather than social performance, who refuse to separate words from meaning. We are, as Wittgenstein might have recognized, the keepers of language's highest purpose, those who insist that words serve understanding rather than merely filling silence. And in that recognition, perhaps you'll find not just understanding of your discomfort, but appreciation for your gift. Not just acceptance of who you are, but celebration of who you're meant to be. Not just strategies for surviving small talk, but a vision for creating conversations that matter. For as Wittgenstein knew well, the aspects of things that are most important for us are hidden because of their simplicity and familiarity. And in a world that often values social smoothness over cognitive depth, your commitment to meaningful language, with all its social awkwardness and limitations, may be exactly what we need most. Do you recognize this pattern in yourself? How quickly does your energy drain when trapped in small talk? Share your experience in the comments. I read every single one and love connecting with fellow linguistic truth seekers.